different environment. Let me get the camera set up here. Oh, work. Welcome to the live stream. Welcome to the basement. I'm on a different platform. We're out of the basement for a few days because of a big family event. So please struggle with me through this live stream. I'm using some technology I haven't used for about a year. But let me know if you can see me. If somebody could give me a 5x5 to let me know you can see me and hear me, that would be awesome. Wow. Thank you for bearing with me here. Come on, somebody please let me know. Yes. Okay, Jake, thank you. All right. Well, let's get started, guys. Okay. Today is a massive day for silver and gold. The Federal Reserve will announce their monetary policy decision. It will have a big short-term impact on the gold and silver price. We know the last few days have been very good for gold and silver. Will that continue? We'll talk about that in this live stream video. But more importantly, guys, the big problem that we're looking at right now is where will we be 2 to 3 years from now? That's what we want to look at. And that's where it gets very fascinating to think, right? Where will Jerome Powell, where will the monetary policy be 2 to 3 years from now? Because it's going to get very, very interesting. So thank you guys for being here with me today. Again, we're out of the basement for a few days. Thank you to my friend Ricky for staying at the house and kind of running the basement remotely. I appreciate your help as well. But most importantly, thank you for being here. Please give this a thumbs up. Let's talk about what's going to happen today. Big news day, okay? Massive news day. We had a big day up in the gold and silver price yesterday as well. Why don't we talk about that first, right? Yesterday, silver up 50 cents per ounce. Gold up $25 per ounce. Let's go take a look right now. I can't do the share screen, so bear with me here for 1 second. We'll go out to Pimbex on the mobile device. Look at this, guys, gold. Can you see that? That might be backwards. Well, anyway, I'll tell you. Gold's at $2,425 per ounce. Silver, $28.83. We're pushing up against $29 per ounce in silver. Wow. Okay. Wow, wow, wow. Now, today we're going to get this news out of the Fed, just so we can talk about it briefly. But what we really want to talk about is where we're going to be 2 to 3 years from now with the Fed and how that will impact the gold and silver price. But look, basically the time's up on the Fed, right? The hens are coming home to roost. So today, what we can expect, right, is basically no big change in the monetary policy by the Fed. They're probably not going to lower rates. There's a chance that they could lower rates. We've talked about that. A better chance that they would lower rates as opposed to raise rates. But what they're going to do is set the stage for a September rate cut. Everybody and their brother, even Nick Timiraos from the Wall Street Journal, right? He's predicting that we're going to get the stage set for a rate cut in September, okay? But the reality of what's going on behind the scenes with the Fed is so much different, and that's what we need to look at. Where are we going to be 2 to 3 years from now? Let's look at a couple different scenarios, okay? And I'm doing this off the top of my head, but this all makes perfect sense to us. The Fed needs to lower rates, okay? Everybody knows that, right? The Fed needs to lower rates, but not for the reason that they want to project to the open markets. They need to lower rates because the Fed needs inflation. And when the Fed does lower rates, get ready, guys, because that's what's going to happen. We're going to have another wave of massive inflation. All the smartest people in the room are predicting this, right? We could have this 14%, 15% inflation within the next year or two, okay? That's what the Fed needs because the Fed needs to inflate away the debt. Remember the U.S. national debt clock? Congratulations, my fellow Americans. We did it. We knew we had that goal of getting to $35 trillion in national debt, and we did it, right? The only way that I heard Tavi Costa say yesterday, I think like 27 or 37% of that $35 trillion needs to be refinanced in the upcoming year. The Fed needs the lower rates. That will make the dollar less valuable Okay, that's what happens when they lower rates. The value of the US dollar goes down. Even in prettiest turd in the toilet measurement, right? The DXY index, which compares the dollar to the euro and the yen, it will set off inflation, okay? And that will be, right? That will be the time. We are entering a 2 to 3 year period, in my opinion, where we're going to see potentially the unbelievable price appreciation in the silver and gold market, because that's when everybody else wakes up. Okay, so whatever the Fed does today is noise. Sure, if they cut rates, which is a very slight chance, but if they do, that will send the price of gold and silver skyrocketing. If they do what everybody thinks they're going to do, which is leave rates where they are and talk about, set the stage, right? Because there'll be a press conference after the big announcement where our old friend Jerome Powell, will talk to the press, and they're going to set the stage, right? Because everybody knows the economy's in bad shape. So they can cut rates. That's as we head into, it'll be after the election, most likely, coincidentally, pure coincidence, right? But next year, we'll get some runaway inflation. And at that point, guys, what it comes down to is the real interest rates, the real interest rate, right? And that is so critical for you and me as a silver and gold investor, anyone who invests in any type of real asset, farmland, gold, silver, oil, anything real, to understand, right? If we get 14% inflation next year, which is what I'm predicting, okay, 2025, and they raise rates to 7%, it doesn't matter, right? There's still a 7% gap between where the inflation rate is and where the interest rates are. We are moving into an environment where the Fed is going to have no choice because of the bed they've set for themselves, but they have this massively huge negative real interest rates. The nominal rate, which is just the number, right? 4%, 5%, 6%, whatever. That really isn't going to matter in the next 2 to 3 years, because in the next 2 to 3 years, because of simple mathematics, because of the level of the debt, the Fed is going to have no choice. The Fed, that's the little secret. Okay, that's the little secret. The Fed wants inflation. The Fed needs inflation. It's the only way they can keep the system going forward, right? The people that are in power, the people with all the wealth in the country, they are beholden to this current system. And the only way, and they're okay with big inflation because they own all the big assets. And that's why you probably want to own some real assets as well. I'm not giving financial advice, but you may want to consider owning some silver, gold, real assets, because they will do well in this environment. And when this next wave of inflation comes through, okay, that's probably, I don't know, what do you think? Is that when your neighbors wake up? Is that when the average American wakes up that, oh my gosh, right? Like, I remember when this happened back in 2022, when we had 15% inflation, when it seemed like groceries went up every time I went to the grocery store. The next time it happens, more and more of your fellow Americans are going to wake up, okay? And they're going to be looking now for ways to take actions they can take to protect themselves. And think about this. There's not that much gold and silver out there. It's the amount that's available to the retail investor is quite small. We know what happens when there's even the smallest uptick in interest in precious metals. Look what happened during the banking crisis that we had a year and a half ago. Look what happened during the C-19 crisis. It became unavailable. You know why? I'll show you why. I'll show you why. Very simply, why. Hold on here. Because people can go to places like this. This is Pimbek's website, channel sponsor, and buy silver and gold immediately. And by the way, I want to say thank you to Pimbek's for sponsoring Ron's Basement, sponsoring this live stream. If you want to get your hands on some silver, gold, or platinum group metals, if I'm correct about what could happen in the next 2 to 3 years, that might be something you want to consider. Please put Pimbek's in your mix. You're going to find they have great selection, great service, and great prices. It's a company I used before they sponsored Ron's Basement, so I can tell you that I've been very happy with them, but you need to discover that for yourself. Okay? So they need inflation. That's the big key. The Fed needs inflation. The other massive key to understand as a silver and gold investor is in the long run. And in this day and age, how long's long run? 2 years, 3 years, 5 years? Silver and gold are awesome ways to protect your wealth during periods of big inflation. Guys, is there any other way that they can get out of this? Right? Is there somebody help me? Unless an alien ship comes down and provides some type of miracle, right? The situation that they've dug us into just doesn't work. I listened to Lawrence Leopard yesterday. There's a great discussion between Lawrence Leopard, Harvard, MBA, big wealth manager, Tavi Costa from Crescat Capital. They were on with Peter Grandich from petergrandich.com. They have a 1 hour. I would highly recommend. These are the smartest guys in the room. And guess what? You're just as smart, right? You can, if you listen to me, listen to them, listen to yourself, right? Listen to listen to Janet Yellen and Jerome Powell. They'll tell you everything's fine. Listen to all these people and then come together to, come up with your own opinion, and if you think that it's maybe a smart decision to protect some of your wealth, a big portion of your wealth, whatever, with silver and gold, then you can take the action. All right, guys, let me get back here. I'm sorry, okay, the Fed lower rates. More morphine is what they need, yes. But in the end, what really matters is the real rate, okay? I'm telling you. We could, look, can the Fed raise rates right now? Some people think that there's a chance they could raise rates today. Yeah, sure, they could raise rates. But how? Then that's really what they should do. But they won't, absolutely not do that. Very, very, very un poquito chance that that's going to happen. Because like Tavi Costa pointed out yesterday, the Fed has trillions upon trillions of dollars of, not the Fed, the Treasury has trillions upon trillions of dollars of debt that they need to refinance that rolls over. And they can barely afford it right now, okay? That would cause a crash in the system. So what we're going to see over the next 2 to 3 years, what we're going to see today is a bunch of, Fed talk, blah, 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 really a bunch of noise. What we want to think about is the next 2 to 3 years, higher inflation environment that is absolutely going to result in the devaluation of the US dollar. The ultra wealthy, they're fine with that, right? This system works great for them. I mean, look at what happened over the last 10 years. If you're an average American, one way you can protect yourself is with real assets. Look at what happened with the value of your house over the last 2 to 3 years. That's what we can see happen with the value of real assets as we move forward. The time is up for the Fed, right? The man behind the curtain, like in The Wizard of Oz, the time is almost up. It's going to be a very interesting ride here. I'm going to raise rates so we could let's see. Okay, I'm going to get through my notes here quickly. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. So which will again make the national debt untenable, which will require further devaluation of the dollar or, right, monetization of the debt. That's the thing we didn't talk about. That's what's going to need to be done, right? Is the Fed finds themselves, the Treasury finds themselves in a situation where the only way that people will buy the U.S. Treasuries is if it's at a higher rate, but the Fed doesn't want the higher rates. That's when the Fed starts to print money again and buy the debt themselves. That's like the world of unicorn fart dust. I mean, that will be the catalyst that will create a situation where the dollar starts to go down precipitously in value. Okay, we're in a real. What do you think about this next statement? We're in a real first-class debt spiral in this country, right? Where it's too big. It's beyond this whole idea, debt to GDP ratio. We're at what, 120, 130 right now? No one has ever come back from that. We're the world's most powerful and exceptional country in the world, but we're also a banana republic. And I've heard again, guys like Tavi Costa, Lawrence Leopard refer to this as being the case. It's unfortunate, but it's true. Okay, the other big news story that we're going to have this week. Today's the big day, right? Today could be interesting. I want you to be prepared, right? We could have one of these days where if Powell comes out and he's hawkish, they don't even have to raise rates. But if he says one of these, oh, well, we're going to be higher for longer because we're still really focused on the fight on inflation, blah, blah, blah. I don't think this will happen. But if it does, be prepared. You could see gold drop $50 an ounce. You could see silver, one of those down $1 days in silver. And that's okay, guys, because it's, like I said at the beginning, it's short-term noise. Even if we have an up $50 day in gold and an up $1 day in silver. Again, right? That's great. That's wonderful, but it's all short-term noise. The 2 to 3 year, and I've shrunk it. I used to talk about 5 years, but the numbers have become so crazy now that it's 2 to 3 years out. We're going to see unbelievable, in my opinion. Don't make any financial decisions based on anything I'm saying, but in my opinion, we're going to see unbelievable rises in the silver price and gold price. And people have been getting mad at me lately. Susie was reading some comments yesterday about my ideas about the price of silver and gold. Hey, I firmly believe that we'll see triple-digit silver. I think it could happen in the next 2 to 3 years. That's what I believe. I could be dead wrong. But I feel more confident about that right now, $100 silver, than probably any other time since I've been following the silver market over the last 20 years. Things are coming to a head. Rick Rule, you can watch. I did an interview with Rick Rule that's on the channel yesterday. He said it. The hens are coming home to roost. The chicks are coming home to roost, however you say it. The reality is setting in, okay? The $406 silver price that I had in a preview, I got a lot of trouble for that, okay? That's the paper to silver ratio right now on the U.S. debt clock, right? We're printing $406 US every year for each 1 ounce of silver that comes out of the ground. And I also want to mention quickly too, I mentioned it yesterday, but we need to talk about it again because there were a lot of people. Were you freaked out by this? Were you scared by this? All of a sudden, there was all this attention put on the U.S. debt clock and how when you go on their gold silver page, it says there's 18 billion ounces of silver reserves. I want to reiterate to you, that's the amount of silver in the ground. That 18 billion, most of it, right? There's maybe a billion or two above ground is the best estimate that I've heard. But that 18 billion is in the ground, buried. That's what the big mining companies have on their books as silver reserves, as silver that is economically mineable at the current silver price. We talk to the silver mining CEOs all the time, right? It is very difficult to get that silver out of the ground. And you want some proof of that? Well, look at the Silver Institute's silver miner production numbers for the last couple of years. They're going down. Sorry about that. Had to take a drink of day-old coffee. They're going down. So that 18 billion ounces, yes, right? It's there, but it's buried deep in the ground. And again, talk to any silver mining CEO and they'll tell you how difficult it is. Excuse me. I apologize for coughing. Still fighting off a summer cold after 11 days of fighting. How are you doing today? Thank you for being here. We got one more big, massive story. Today's the biggest news day of the year for the silver and gold market when Jerome comes out, but there's more coming on Friday. And we're going to talk about that next. But first, I want to talk about the most important thing, and that is you. Thank you for being here. Please give this a thumbs up. It'll help get the word out to more and more people. Okay? Thank you. Guys, Friday, we're going to get the jobs number. That could also be a massive mover for the general markets, but not just that, but for the silver and gold market as well. Now, we got some data yesterday, the JOLTS jobs number, which measures the job openings. It like collapsed. It was crazy. There's evidence mounting that the job market is rolling over. People aren't quitting their jobs. People can't afford to quit their jobs. right? People can't afford to quit their first job, their second job, or their third job, which many average Americans are now doing just to make ends meet, right? Working 2 or 3 jobs. So Friday, we get the BLS, the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, will let us know the latest jobs numbers. That'll be the July jobs numbers. It's amazing how fast they can calculate these things, right? In a day or two. And again, one of the big keys we'll be looking for is how many revisions did they make to the previous 2 months? Because typically what they do is they announce the current number, which is awesome, right? Bidenomics is still working, but then they revise down the previous 2 months. I think they revise down the previous 2 months and then they roll those into the current month and say, see, look, everybody, everything's great. We're doing great. The U.S. economy is stronger than ever, but whatever the case may be. Thank you guys. I got 100. I can see on this, we have 136 thumbs up. I appreciate it. So be prepared for Friday. Hey, in the world, there's a lot going on in the Middle East right now, right? Further escalation going on. I haven't been able to follow that so closely, but we don't like that, right? But it's going on, so we need to report it. Also in Venezuela, there's a ton of, do you know this about Venezuela? This is interesting. Well, 2 interesting things, right? There's big contention going on after their presidential, Maduro or whatever, presidential election. I'm out from the Alice Ricky, who's back at the house, maybe if he can talk to Mama, my Venezuelan friend, about what's going on in Venezuela. But massive upheaval going on in Venezuela, the world, this presidential election. But do you know this about Venezuela? And correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember reading several times Venezuela has more oil reserves than anyone else in the world? I wonder why we're so interested in what goes on in Venezuela. I wonder. You ever wonder? So that's what's happening. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything here, guys. Man, what a treat to be able to be out of the basement and be able to talk with you guys. A lot going on with China and gold. There's a report out that says that actually, China, while they said they stopped buying gold, the central bank in May, that they may have actually bought gold in May. So things continue to unravel. Again, today's the big day, right? We get to hear from Jerome in the Fed. Noise, short-term noise, because right now, remember, the Fed has a very consistent record of one thing. Number one, destroying the value of the US dollar. Can we argue that? Right? I mean, what does that mean? Right? The Fed's stated goal is to destroy 2% of the value of the US dollar. And think about what our founding fathers think about that. Our founding fathers, right, at great risk to their own well-being, wrote this thing called the U.S. Constitution, and in it they explicitly said silver and gold are the only forms of real money. It was the bankers that ruined it. Watch The Wizard of Oz. Read about, I encourage you, it's been about 3 weeks since I've given you the Wizard of Oz speech. Read about the book, The Wizard of Oz, which was written decades before the movie was made. It's all about silver and gold, right? Those ruby slippers were originally silver slippers. It's about how the big bankers, and this was pre-World War I, right? The big bankers in England wanted to put the screws to the average American by taking them off the silver standard. And again, I'm not an expert in this, so read about it for yourself. This has been going on for a long time. So yes, our founding fathers, I'm sorry, they are rolling over. Jerome Powell's record is 2 things. Destroy the value of the dollar, okay? They've done a pretty good job of that, even just Jerome, but the Fed in general, okay? Number 2, can we believe what they say, right? How many times has the Fed said, oh, everything's great, everything's awesome? Oh, and then we had a great financial crisis in 2008. Bernanke was in front of Congress like a couple months before that all erupted saying, everything's great, everything's awesome. Janet Yellen talked about how inflation was transitory. Excuse me. Inflation was temporary, right? Wrong, wrong, wrong. The biggest one was that the Fed wasn't going to raise rates until the end of 2023. And they wound up raising rates at the fastest rate in history way, way before that. So we can't believe what they say. But what we do know when we look out 2 to 3 years, it's undeniable that the value of that US dollar, unfortunately, right, the paper dollar is going to go down. Right? We don't like it. We wish that we'd stuck with what our founding fathers laid out for us, but one way we can protect ourselves is with silver and gold. Hey guys, thank you for being here. Thanks for being part of the basement. Thank you also to channel sponsor First Mining Gold, Canadian gold developer with 2 multi-million ounce projects in Canada, and Fortuna Mining, an operating mining company. Their quarterly results will be out next week, their second quarter results. They've got operating mines in Latin America and West Africa. You take care of yourself. I'll try to get back on here. I'll be out of the basement for a day or two. Thanks to my friend Ricky for staying at the house and taking care of things, and I'll see you guys soon. Now I got to figure out how to end this. The best part of the live stream. I forgot how to end it. Okay, this is interesting. Now you guys can go now because I'm really embarrassed. I don't know how to end this. Share? No. Pin the live stream? No. Hi Daniel. Hey, I can see the comments now. Live. Oh my gosh, this is funny. This could be the live stream that never ends, guys. Share. Are you sure? Okay, here we go. All right, now I'm going to officially say goodbye, basement dwellers. Thanks for being here.